And then I just get to talk for an hour, and then I go back to doing whatever it was I'm doing. So it's a fairly low time commitment. I mean, I did have about 12 years of practice beforehand, and that's where all the prep work happened. But I mean, really, it's an incredibly fun sort of thing to do. And also, I'm sure you said you were going to bring this up just about the podcasts I do. The podcasts tend to take longer than the live streams because I have the opportunity to stop and delete segments if I don't like the way I worded something. And I really want to get the wording down very precise, so I have a tendency to delete and re-record over a little bit too much, I think. So the live streams are a good balance of time and content, I think.
I would agree, and I implore everyone who's watching this to check out the links in the sidebar to Day 9's podcast library as well as its live stream. It's Starcraft at almost an academic level. It's beyond just watching the game, it is about learning it fully. But at the same time, it does require a viewer and a player to be fairly familiar with the game, because it's quite advanced concepts going on, and there are some new players watching this. Can you tell them some advice about where to go and how to do to familiarize themselves with the foundations, so to speak?
Yeah. I think that's probably the one issue I have with the current StarCraft community, is that there is quite a bit of an entry barrier, especially if you want to play. If you want to just observe and that sort of thing, I think if you just start watching a lot of pro gamer VODs, just watch I'd say just 10 in each matchup or so, you start to see trends in each matchup, or just sort of surf forums. I honestly prefer the watching of the games, because you actually get to see people do it right, and you don't get any sort of weird ideas stuck into your head. Or even if they really, really want to learn, really hardcore, I would say pick one player for each matchup. So, let's just say, you pick Jaedong and just watch 10 Jaedong Zerg vs. Terrans and 10 Jaedong Zerg vs. Zergs and 10 Jaedong Zerg vs. Protosses, and you sort of see a lot of themes emerging in their play. It's actually kind of interesting. With so many matches coming out, it feels like there's all this variety, but when you sit down and watch just one player, you realize that they have a fairly focused set of strategies that they do. So that's very useful to just see that repetition, I would say. But kind of coming back to it, if you want to play or if you want to observe, PG Tour is really, really hard, even at the D level and D- level. And BattleNet is incredibly easy for someone. There's just no in between. I really think PG Tour would benefit from having an E or even an F rank that you could just choose to go to get some competition who's at your level, because that's, I think, the greatest benefit that I've had from playing since the dawn of time, is that I've gotten the opportunity to always have people who are at my level, way above my level, and way below my level. I just was always in the middle of the pack.
Well, you managed to get quite far in the VCG qualifiers a couple of years back, so a bit ahead of the pack as well, I would say. But yes, I do agree with you that there's a sense of elitism within the current StarCraft community, that if you're not good, you better be, and then we'll talk to you, kind of thing. But on the other hand, if anyone is interested in learning the game from the foundations and up, these resources that you and some others provide are really useful for the true understanding of it. However, moving on to some more lighter things, the current Korean Pro League and the various Star Leagues are underway. Do you have any exciting predictions or recommendations of particular recent games that everybody should watch for entertainment and educational value?
Well, I think one that I might end up doing for the Day 9 dailies is Calm vs. Fantasy. That just happened, so I hope this isn't a spoiler for anyone. Well, because it's going to be. But
whatever.
So SK Telecom played against STX in the Pro League. SK Telecom was down 0-2, and then Call won in Game 3, and then Calm played against Fantasy in Game 4 and won that game. And I was really happy about that one, because Calm recently played against Fantasy in the OGN Star League, and something went violently wrong with his strategy, because I have seen him do that exact strategy several times on Neo Harmony, and when he did it in that OSL game, it just backfired. He like didn't have lurkers for like 15 minutes into the game, and he didn't even go mutilus. He like went straight for lurkers, and they just like didn't ever come out. And I mean, like watching the game was depressing. I mean, Fantasy was at like 128 food when Calm was at like 30 food. So it's just like, oh god, it was a really brutal game. So when Calm won in the Pro League, I was like, yeah, go Calm. And then in the Ace match, Calm played against Fantasy again. So I was like, oh my god, Calm, you got to do this. You got to show that you're the better player, you know? Because you really need a lot of wins to prove that you're not horrible after losing in like a 120 to 30 food deficit. So the game starts, and Calm does this really weird, brilliant opening, gets this unbelievably huge advantage, and then chokes. It's one of the worst chokes I've ever seen. Just complete army disorganization. I would really like to rewatch the game at some point just to find out what startled him so much. But I mean, Fantasy played as standard as you can play, and Calm was just in this incredible, beautiful position and managed to lose. And I was just like, oh god, oh man, it just was quite depressing. And in terms of a entertaining game, though, to kind of leave it on an uplifting note. By Hero versus Bisu in that same set was really awesome on Fighting Spirit. That was a really fun game to watch.
Alright, there you heard it, folks, from the man himself. But speaking of entertaining games rather than conventional and the way you should do it, a week ago or so, Slayer's Boxer faced Yellow, his old arch nemesis, once again in the Pro League, and I won't tell people how it ended, but it was entertaining and anything but ordinary. Did you watch that game by any chance?
I didn't. I did not watch that game. I'm actually going to load it up right now. See, I kind of keep this growing playlist of matches that I watch, and then I tend to sit down and watch like 15 or 20 in a row. And
that's how I spend my mornings.
Yeah, I know, like just kind of like eating Cheerios and watching the StarCraft matches. Let me pop this game open, so that way I can be on the same page as you.
Well, I was just going to ponder with you, who have, you've not only been part of the StarCraft community since it began, but you've also watched these two players all the time, from their rise and fall, and they're still active, amazingly so. What is it that makes these two characters, who are quite iconic, so, well, je ne sais quoi, what they are? They're no longer as good as they used to be. They don't dominate, but they're still original. They can still take wins in a way that no one else can, etc. How do you view these old-time legends?
Well, first let me say that I remember distinctly, like, watching live the best of 5 that Boxer played against Yellow. I think it was in like the Coca-Cola Star League. It was some
2001.
Yeah, it was the 2001 Star League, and I was just like blown away at how cool they looked, because I mean, not only were they trying to do the nuttiness that every new player wants to do, but they also just had a lot of stuff, and I was just blown away at the fact that they had all these units. So let's see, how do I view these old legends? I suppose this is gonna be a long-winded thing, but it's never been in my nature not to be long-winded, so I'll just go ahead and do that.
That's what we want.
Hip hip hooray. So, like, anytime someone plays a new game, not just StarCraft, but like any game, especially things like Magic the Gathering or in something like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, people obsess about tricks. They love some sort of little gimmicky tactic that, makes them feel like they did something clever. Most players do not value just stable, whatever stable happens to be. So in StarCraft, that would be just managing your economy well, timing your upgrades, getting really good macro, these sorts of things. So when StarCraft first comes out, you get people obsessing with the idea of like rushing for Dark Templar and Reaver and doing a DT Reaver drop. And that wasn't like something that you did early in the game. That was like your whole strategy. If you didn't win with that, you were just like, oh my god, I guess I'm going to lose now. I mean, you really just did not have any next step for that. So like when you watch tons of these old school games, it's just this incredible variety of just tricks that you see. And over time, people discover, what's stable and what's good and all that sort of thing. And then that's when new players start joining, and they focus heavily on that sort of thing. And it's kind of unfortunate because when those new players start coming around and they focus on that sort of stable stuff, they never explore any of those tricks or those weird ways to win or any of the creative aspects of the game, because that's not what they're used to. I mean, it's really funny to me to think that players who start playing now know that early expanding is standard. That's a weird thing in my eyes to know. Early expanding seems like a third of the Protoss strategies, because he can 2-gate rush or he can 1-gate fast gas. These are the 3 openings that I have in my eyes.